And it does have to be an American elm. The other varieties just don't bend into a basket very well. But with the, I think it's the Dutch elm disease that kind of wiped out a lot of them, it's become a scarcity to be able to make the elm bark baskets. So people in the tribe who are interested in keeping the culture going and stuff like that sometimes have a lot of connections with like parks departments, farmers. We find our ways and we find out when people have to take an elm tree down because there's no choice. And we're like, can we have the bark first, you know? And so anywhere we can get in and harvest bark off a tree that's already coming down, we will. Because it does kill the tree, because we are going to go all the way around it and cut through all of its vascular tissues to get the bark. And it has to be done in springtime. So it's really sad when somebody's like, yeah, we got to take this elm tree down and it's like summer or fall or winter, because we need that spring sap flow to make sure that we can peel the bark away easy. And otherwise it tears, and if once you get a tear, there's not a lot left to fold back in. So traditionally speaking, you would need to go ahead and make your baskets right away while the bark was still very moist. And we're lacing it together with strips of other trees that, if you've ever seen, I have a baskets back here that are made from splint wood. That's what these lashings basically are, and the rim is on the top. Now, my dad experimented with freezing the bark and then pulling it out and sort of re-soaking it. And so we've been able to extend we've been able to pull that off so he can save bark in the freezer and then have enough for like a whole workshop. So we have the bark baskets. This is just one particular style. There's because if you have little trees, unfortunately, you know, you can't make a very big basket, but some of our bigger baskets are more round or square on the bottom. They come up to a narrow neck. They might be in some of the books we have. So I brought some of those. That's a springtime activity where we would be looking to harvest that in the spring. Moving into spring planting, I brought corn mortars, and my corn mortar is back against the wall. It's made out of, I think, a paper birch, and it's pretty big, but actually that's miniature size. My dad made me a big one. It would have been about as big as that basket is, but it's too inconvenient to like lug to demonstrations. Like you kind of make your corn mortar and you leave it somewhere. So I brought a miniature corn mortar, and I cannot remember the Miamia name for that because it was a new word for me. In Potawatomi, they call it botagan, and I learned, because we do so many Lifeways workshops with the Potawatomi, it's stuck in my head as a botagan. But then I brought a smaller one that he made for me, like you can grind littler food or like hickory nuts or something in that, wherever I wanted to. So, and then the basket next to it would be used to store corn. There's a hoe up here, bows and arrows, and I brought these all so that later you could walk around. There's nothing here that you can't touch and ask questions about. I brought examples of some of the lessons we have our students do in cultural camp that reinforce the whole living off of the land. The Miamia notion of family tree is different, that's what this is. It's different than, say, the family tree that I had to fill out at grade school when I was little. In the Miamia version, the roots are your ancestors. And they're there, but you can't see them, and they're nourishing and stabilizing the tree. And then the strong trunk that's holding up everybody is the grandparents. And then the branches are all your adults, your aunts, your uncles, your moms, your dads, right through here, holding up all of this canopy. Every leaf is a child. So that's the Miamia family tree, and so even that connects to the land, and we go back to that. We also have the kids make one year, they get to make a moon phase cube with our words for each of the phases so that they can follow the moon's path and turn their cube at home and hopefully get them more involved with noticing and being good partners with the land. We don't do this lesson anymore. It makes me so sad. This is a sky map. So it has the 4 directions, and they should be able to stand with it point into that direction and read the constellations at night, or flip it over and learn the Miamia words for the path of the sun across the sky. So that's another way teaching kids to be partners with the land. I brought some hands-on stuff if you wanted to learn how to make cordage. Cordage is like our cord that we use to make lashings for lodges and fishing lines and fishing nets, or whatever you needed cordage for. We harvested it from plants like the basswood tree bark, or most popular would be dogbane. So I brought a couple of stalks of dogbane for you to take a look at. And milkweed also makes cordage. Down on the ground is a tub of scraps of dogbane and milkweed, so if later you wanted to get in there, break it apart and make a mess and look for the plant fibers that we would use to cord into cord, we can explore that if you'd like to learn hands-on. Milkweed and dogbane can be harvested after the first frost, but we're supposed to wait to the first hard frost. You know, nature's still using these plants until they die. And then you want to harvest your milkweed right away. If it's out in the wintertime, it's going to get yucky and it won't make good cordage. The dogbane's tougher. It can stand out all winter. You can gather it as you need it. The two plants are related. They both have pods. You've probably seen a milkweed pod. Here we go. That looks like that, and the seeds come out in, with the fluffy tufts that can float away in the wind. So the milkweed makes good cordage, but it's not as tough as the dogbane. Dogbane has a more slender pod to it, and that's how you can tell the dried plants apart. Now when they are growing and they're mature, they have some differences too, but sometimes you get milkweed that looks like dogbane, sometimes you get dogbane that looks like milkweed. And it's important to be careful because one makes you sick and one is edible. Like the tips of the milkweed plant are edible, or like the young milkweed plants are edible, but the dogbane is going to make you sick. So you kind of want to be able to observe your patches of plants before you go in harvesting them. Making cordage, it wouldn't matter if you mix them up so much, but you wouldn't want to cord with the dogbane and then hold the, like some of our kids like to cord and hold the end of their cord in their mouth. So you wouldn't want to do that with the dogbane. Dogbane was also medicinal though. It's like a blood thinner. So this would be a job they would have elders do in the wintertime, would be their job to cord the dogbane because they would get those microdoses of medicine while doing the job. So that's, living off the land is not just your food and your utility, but your medicine too. So trying to think if there's anything else I need to like cover before letting you explore stuff. I did bring a cradle too. So cradle boards are something that kind of went out of style for a while, and you would see them every once in a while, especially in places I think where the cultural chains were unbroken. Like for Indiana, Miami, our culture got disrupted. And it came back together in a cultural revitalization effort only a couple decades ago. And so cradling for us has been gone for a while. There were a couple of cradle boards floating around the tribe, but there's more now, I guess I would say. So you would put this right here is your baby's footrest. So the baby would go in here, and then like ribbon work blankets would be strapped around this to hold them in, and then that protects their head. Did you have a cradle, Rebecca?
Diana made one for Jacob, but
yeah.
She made the frame, but I never finished it. I just used a backpack. I used a modern cradle.
You used a modern cradle. But cradling is important for us because babies are upright then. And from an early age, they're watching that world, they're watching the world all around them. They're watching how living off the land works from the get-go. You know, as soon as they can support their head, they're allowed to be in this. And a lot of the cradling practice, women who had cradling practices would talk about, like, you didn't want their baby in a bassinet where they were just staring at the ceiling or staring at the sky. It wasn't healthy for them. that they needed to be upright so they could see their world and be part of it from the get-go. So, oh, and my cradle has the chinguya pattern on it. So this shape right here, that looks like two triangles meeting together, that's the thunder. For whatever reason, that is the symbol that we adopted for that. And then the zigzag at the top is the opposite of chinguya, his nemesis, the lenipingia, or the water serpent. And so in our stories, the thunder being and the water serpent are always challenging each other and harassing each other, and you'll see them together a lot in our designs and things. So this cradle was made with those. My dad makes a lot. My dad made this cradle, and what he did is he studied the one or two miyamio cradles we have in museums, and then he took all the little measurements. He took cradleboard lessons from some of the Potawatomi and Ojibwe people we know to see how they were bending the wood and shaping the wood, and then he made them to the specifications he found in the museums for Miami people and donated some of those to exhibits. Then he went and talked to a pediatrician because people have grown and changed, and he wanted to make sure that if he was making cradles now, that this would be appropriate for strapping a baby in without inhibiting any of their body development. So this is a modified cradle made for modern day usage. And you can check that out if you're up here later. Every year, yeah.
Because you wear them with that strap around your head?
You can tongue line that if you wanted to. Some people wear their strap here, some people wear it up here. If you've ever worn a tongue, I can tell you what, it saves your back a ton. Frees up your hands a lot. So I think I would want this to be a broader band if I was going to put it here. So, but yeah, if you've never carried a pack with a strap going across your forehead before, don't load it up at first, but try that compared to your back. But I've seen the strap go here before, and I've seen it, seen people carry baskets, so I don't know why you couldn't carry. I feel more secure sometimes with it up here, so if it was my kid, I'd probably be okay doing that personally. It's hard, we don't have living examples anymore, so sometimes we can only speculate. And that also goes back to sometimes with our culture, we can't share everything we think we know because we only think we know it. Does that make sense? Because our culture chain was broken, because we were removed a couple of times, there was disease, there was warfare, families were split apart, and because of that, a lot of our cultural revitalization was this person remembering a piece and this person remembering a piece and bringing it together. And then every year we learn more because the Jesuits lived with us. They wrote it all down. We actually have on our tribal payroll, we actually have someone who can speak Old French because they translate all those manuscripts for us. And we learn more every year that we didn't know about our own selves. Sorry, I need water. I'm trying out. So where are we at on time? Do we have time to let people ask questions and explore stuff? Okay. Yeah.
So you're referring to the museum. Is that it? At the University of Miami in Ohio, or are you talking about the museum in Indianapolis, or
I don't know.
locally?
Where my dad found stuff, or where he donated it to. He's all over,
But there are a couple, at least a couple of
there's a
museums.
couple. Yeah, there's a couple. Our stuff is everywhere. Some of our stuff is in France. Our robe of splendor is in France, and my dad has either recreated stuff or paid artisans to recreate some of that so that our own cultural center can have at least copies of those things. And so in Oxford, Ohio is Miami University, and they're partnered with the tribe on cultural revitalization. So we have a center and exhibit, he's donated items to them for their exhibits. But we also have a tribal museum in Miami, Oklahoma, where our reserve lands are. And then I don't know what all is that Idle Jorg, and I don't know if my dad has donated stuff that way. It's mostly donated to tribal run stuff. Oh, Miami of Indiana, because there's Miami of Oklahoma and there's Miami of Indiana. So I know he's given things to Miami of Indiana for their exhibits as well.
So the land across the river from Seven Pillars,
Yeah,
is that Oklahoma?
that's
maybe, or-
that's
or
Indiana. Yeah,
That's Indiana?
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, sometimes we visit there, but I'm pretty sure that's them. Yeah.
Commentary, the Idle George Museum has a whole section on the Miami.
Yeah, I've heard they, isn't that terrible? I've never been to Idle Shore, it's terrible, but I know they're supposed to have lovely stuff. My cousin goes down there she's a bead artist, so she goes down there to do things often as well with them. Yeah, it's nice.
I remember there was a traveling exhibit there almost 20 years ago, and it had an interview with Phyllis Smiling and some of the other elders. It was
Some of
really
the
nice.
old elders that we sadly
Yeah,
also
they're still there,
lost,
huh?
yeah.
Or
So,
where that's at now, the traveling exhibit, I don't know, like
yeah.
how long it traveled or where it ended up at.
Yeah, and the one, there's a little green book here that's all about an exhibit that we had at the university. And sadly what that is it's temporary because the pieces came from, they were borrowed from various museums and private collectors. And so it was this one-time deal that was all together in one place, until the next time somebody wants to put in the work to organize that again. Yeah.
When you were talking about the different tribes having different languages and traditions, with regard to medicinal herbs and flowers and uses, does that hold true as well? Like dog bane, even though dog bane is commonly known.
Yeah, and that's something I don't know enough about, like in other tribes' medicinal practices across the board, if they're using it as well as medicine that way. It's kind of hard. So there was a neighboring Potawatomi tribe that did a lot of, we call them lifeways workshops, where they taught you the culture, like living off the land stuff, right? And it was important. It's become kind of an important movement for tribes because one, they want to get back to tradition, but two, times are kind of iffy in a lot of ways, and knowing your land and being able to utilize it and live off of it, they consider it to be food sovereignty. And, we want to rely on ourselves for the medicine and the stuff. And so for a while there, what was really great about that particular Potawatomi tribe is they let anybody come. You could be from another tribe. As long as you paid the registration fee, you could be part of the workshops. You didn't have to be Native American to go. They just wanted people to know food sovereignty. So we started to learn a lot of the cross-tribal stuff there, but unfortunately that program it met a bad end when Native American politics came into play, and a new council got elected one year, and a lot of the people that were helping run that program weren't Native American, but they were very knowledgeable and a big chunk of making the program work. And the new council fired those people, and then they fired the people that. So sadly, Native American culture has been infused with some political stuff as well. And when I said the Jesuits lived with us, a lot of Native American tribes were Catholicized. And a lot of them are very Catholic to this day. And a lot of us have gone back to traditional ways. And sometimes the two don't always get along, and that happened to that tribe. And so the cultural program just completely fell apart. And all the people that were tied into it, I haven't seen them in years. Like, no other tribe stepped up to sort of replace that the way that it used to be. So I was in the process of learning that. Now it's kind of like back to square one again. Yeah. But there's somebody out there who knows. Somebody who's, who's studying plants and studying how people are using them through different, tribal groups. Yeah.
Plus different plants are in different areas.
Yeah.
So things they have up in Michigan, they may have things that we don't have down here.
Yeah.
For example, one of my favorite plants, Joe Pye,
Yeah.
it's a medicinal plant, but there's no word in Miami for it. Even though it grows in this.
I know. My sister. Yeah, and so like I said, we have that elm compared to the birch that they would have tree-wise, And so there's those different practices because you're living on your land, and if you just drive an hour north, the soil's different, right? And that means everything that grows there is different. Now we have dog bean and milkweed growing here, and up north where my parents are, where it's sandy and not clay, they have that too, but it's still changing. And the further north you go, there's different stuff. And I know, I told my sister once that I wasn't sleeping well, and I knew she was going to the Lifeways, and I said, ask them, you know, somebody up there can help me sleep better. And she came back with this bag of stuff, and she goes, it's Loon's medicine. I go, well, what does that mean? She goes, I don't know. I'm like, I'm not taking this. I don't know what it is to this day, what bush it is, because they didn't give me like the Latin or even the English word for it. I just know it's Loon medicine. So I was like, maybe not. Yeah. So, yes.
I'm curious if there's any effort or advocacy in your tribe to repatriate some of the things that are in museums back to the tribe, like bring that from France back to you.
Yeah, and I don't know. There might. Well, we did do that at Forks of the Wabash one year, and it wasn't a very popular move, but we had the final say. Yeah. There was some documents that came through to Forks of the Wabash, and the tribe stepped in and went, that's ours.
Good.
And yeah, because there is supposed to be certain laws in place for that, but I don't know about things that are already, you know, in the museums, particularly like overseas and stuff. But yeah, if it's something newly found and somebody wants to be like, we're going to put this in our exhibit, we can say, that's ours. Yeah. And
I think that's NAGPRO, right?
yeah, NAGPRO. So, especially when it comes to like remains, yeah. And trying to think of something along those lines. Yep,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just to let you know, I am uploading just a real short, about 10-slide PowerPoint on Dropbox that has like the moon chart and all. These are all things I know identity.
Great.
So I know I see something I should have looked at it, but it'll be on Dropbox.
Yeah, the Miami publications not all of these publications are from the tribe, but if they're from the tribe, they're available to you. You will have to purchase them. But yeah, you can take pictures of this stuff. The Miami Center, I think it's at .org, and then MiamiNation.com is our tribe. But you'll be able to find your way to finding those resources and maybe be able to buy them if you're interested in more. And you know, it could be more of like a lot of it is culture teaching for us, but that doesn't mean it's not interesting for you. Yeah, and I guess too, to kind of wrap things up, and now I can do more questions after this, but you know, from the master naturalist point of view, just if you can walk away with that whole partnership to the land concept, but also, you know, I don't know what your personal goals are. Some of us stick around and help the Parks Department or help launch other programs eventually. If you're ever doing anything that involves any Native American or I've been recently schooled that the preferred term is American Indigenous or Indigenous culture, there's a tribe somewhere that's affiliated with wherever you're at. You got to do your best to find them and reach out to them before trying to run a program or before trying to set up a thing. And that goes back, first of all, it's just polite. But second of all, it goes back to the culture chains getting broken and unbroken. And you know, earlier in this country, there was actual physical genocide of people, right? Whether it happened intentionally or unintentionally by the spread of disease or warfare. But then there was the cultural genocide where people were removed from children were straight up removed from their villages. I mean, we have old people today that remember being at the boarding schools. And so when you don't research or ask for the correct story, but you put a story up, you're breaking our culture change because you're telling people the wrong story. And it makes a little part of us disappear. So it's important to if you're going to participate in that, to find a representative. And I would reach out to multiple too, because going back to the beginning of this, when I said I'm just one person with one perspective from the tribe, and you could talk to my cousin and get a whole different viewpoint. You could talk to Miami, Oklahoma, and get a whole different viewpoint than Miami, Indiana, or even from family to family within any of those. So multiple viewpoints is helpful. And then the more people you reach out to, you kind of get a feeling for who's the go-to person for that sort of stuff. Yeah.
That just made me think when you said Miami, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And we know that that was the Indian territory.
Yeah.
So are they cousins of Miami of Indiana?
Yeah. I mean, we're all related.
Okay.
So what happened is when removal happened, some of us were allowed to stay, and some of us were allowed to go. And that's a common tactic to split up the tribe. It was a common tactic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, they were our relatives. And then what happened is Miami, Oklahoma never lost their federal recognition.
Right.
But slowly, Miami, Indiana, in very unfair ways, their federal recognition was taken away. They have been fighting it ever since.